sees the guys in her team perform incredible skill moves. Zeres notices her astonishment and smirks at her. This simp thought that she must have fallen for him already after seeing his skills and appearance. Unfortunately for him, she's not particularly paying attention to him. He's stunned and outraged when he sees her asking Zig of all people how he just performed a skill. It turns out that Zig isn't half as bad as they expected. In fact, he appears to be a very skilled swordsman, because he is currently soloing the horde of monsters charging at him. Using the skills and knowledge he acquired as Bart's, Zig is able to counter all of the monster's attacks. He knows that the skeleton's weakness is its temple, so that's exactly where he aims for. This time, he's a lot more precise and manages to last the devastating hit on the skeleton. The other monsters are outraged to see he vanquished one of their own, so the bloody blacksmith decides to act a lot smarter. He knows that he doesn't have combat skills, so he decides that his best shot at defeating the wooden monsters is by using tricks. It turns out that these wooden monsters are actually called mobs, and Zig knows that if they surround him, it's game over. As such, he concludes that he needs to get rid of all the mobs in the area as quickly as possible. Zig suddenly charges at the wooden soldiers with his sword. From experience, he knows that their weak point is their power source, which happens to be the heart. So, he takes his sword and drives it into the heart of one of the wooden soldiers. And the moment he performs this action, the monster blows up. Unfortunately, that's about the same time that a tab pops up, informing the blacksmith that his stamina is low. He hasn't been fighting for long, but the character is already exhausted and needs to consume food. Zig is pretty disappointed to discover this, but thankfully, he had a contingency plan in case of such emergencies. Before he came to meet them, he actually packed some biscuits with him and he's thankful he thought about it. While Zig is relieved that he brought snacks, Sia is more concerned with fangirling. She points out how difficult it is to kill the mobs with a single shot. Zig managed to do it without even having skills, so it's naturally that she's blown away by his mad techniques. She even starts telling Zeres about it, reminding him that she said the blacksmith is very strong. As you'd expect, the scumbag is very upset that Zig somehow stole the show. He wonders why a noob would dare to act so cocky in battle, and starts to reconsider his earlier decision. Back then, he was feeling gracious, and that was why he allowed Zig to tag along, but now that he sees the guy as a threat to his ego, he changes his mind. While the blacksmith just stands there unsuspectingly, Zeres begins plotting schemes to slowly take him out. Sometime later, we see another skeleton soldier appear. It's aiming at them with a bow and an arrow that has a purple flame on it. The skeleton soldier shoots the arrow at them, and it looks like Zeres immediately knows what it is. He informs the others that the skeleton soldier has arrived, and just before the purple flaming arrow can hit them, he uses his sword to deflect it with a powerful counter-smash skill. However, instead of the arrow going back to the skeleton soldier, it bounces off the sword and goes straight into our blacksmith's chest. It turns out that Zeres' evil plan is already in motion. Seeing that the arrow hit Zig, he chuckles mischievously, thinking that the new hidden skill he learned is very cool. He even believes that it's going to hurt Zig a lot more, because the power of the blast has doubled. Sia is immediately alarmed when she sees Zig hurt, so she rushes to his aid, asking him if he's okay. That's when a tab pops up, informing the bloody blacksmith that he's going to be paralyzed for the next 10 minutes, and his movement will be reduced. Even though Zig is in tremendous pain, he wants to look strong in front of a girl, so he says that he's absolutely fine, claiming that it's just one arrow. He says this to appear strong, but he's crying in his mind, because he maxed out the pain sensor on the capsule, and now everything hurts like a fucking truck. Zeres just scoffs when he looks at Zig. He tells him that he looks exhausted and suggests that he's already reached his limit because he's a production job class character. Alden chimes in and taunts the blacksmith even more. He jokingly tells his partner scumbag to not be mean, because Zig is probably already embarrassed enough. The two scumbags then suggest that the blacksmith stays there and rest while the paralysis wears off. They claim that they can't carry him, so it's better if he stays there. However, Sia opposes the idea. She snaps at the two and tells them that they're not leaving him. Zeres tries to make his point, but he's interrupted by Zig, who suddenly agrees to stay behind. Zig tells them that he'll be able to get back on his feet if he rests a little. He promises to catch up with them and the scumbags agree with him. Zeres claims that the blacksmith is right and reminds Sia that they all know each other's location since they're in the same party. He assures her that she has nothing to worry about. Sia thinks about it for a while and eventually agrees to leave Zig behind. However, before she leaves, she makes our blacksmith a promise to message her the moment he's free from the paralysis. After he assures her that he will, she finally leaves with the others, heading deeper into the dungeon. Once they're out of sight, Zig opens his inventory and heads straight to the potions section. Without wasting any time, he grabs a green potion and gobbles it down. Once he's finished, another tab pops up, stating that he just drank a common antidote potion and as such, he's no longer in a paralyzed state. A devilish smile appears on Zig's face as he wipes off the excess potion in his mouth. His plan had worked, and now he can't wait to get started with the next. Elsewhere, we see that Sia and the others have gone a lot farther into the cave, and Alden holds a torch to lead the way because it's now very dark. Along the way, Zeres suddenly starts asking Sia how she likes the bow. He asks her if it's light, and Alden chimes in, suggesting that it matches her current outfit. Sia takes a closer look at the bow and asks if it's really a low-priced weapon as they said. She doesn't think so, because the bow looks very expensive. Still, Alden just assures her that it's a common weapon at her level, and tells her that she shouldn't feel pressured. Moreover, they're not even archers like her, so they think it would be better if she has it instead. Hearing this, Sia thanks them and decides that rather than accepting the item permanently, she'll just borrow it until they're done with their quest in the dungeon. Alden chuckles mentally when he sees how happy Sia is to have the bow, and I swear this is the most simp behavior I've ever seen. And then, he tells Zeres that it's high time they made their true intentions clear to the girl. Unfortunately, before he can finish his sentence, a rock comes out of nowhere and knocks the staff out of his hand. The whole place turns dark and Zeres asks him what's going on. He claims that a rock suddenly knocked the staff out of his hand, so Zeres understands and asks him to turn the lights back on. After searching through the darkness, Alden finally finds the staff. He informs the others and picks it up, but when he turns the light back on, he's shocked at what he sees. It's another army of skeleton soldiers standing right in front of him, and these are a lot more menacing. Before Alden and Zeres can fully understand what's going on, they're surrounded by the mobs. However, there's another problem, and that's the fact that Sia is no longer with them. By the time they realize she's gone, they're surrounded by many monsters while someone helps the archer escape from the predicament. The skeleton soldier and wooden monsters charge at them so quickly that even Zeres doesn't know what to do. Eventually, he just tells Alden to attack, hoping that they will survive somehow. Meanwhile, Sia finally decides to confront the mystery person dragging her away. She stops running and demands to know who the person is. She's still yelling for the person to let her go, when he suddenly brings the torch closer to his face so she can see it. Of course, the girl immediately stops complaining when she sees that it's none other than our boy Zig. He tells her to calm down, but she can't shake off the curiosity. She is shocked to see him and asks him what's going on. Sia then asks him where they're going, and reminds him that they have to go back so they can save the others. She's afraid the monsters would kill them both, but Zig cheekily tells her not to worry, reminding her that Zeres and Alden are both level 70 players who can take care of themselves. Zig points out that the dungeon is recommended for players around level 45, and since they're a lot higher than that, he believes that they'll be fine. He then suggests that they keep moving forward so they can head deeper into the dungeon. Meanwhile, we see that the blacksmith was right in his assumption, because both scumbags actually managed to defeat the monsters. Alden sits on the floor panting and asking if the ambush is over. And Zeres, who's just as exhausted as he is, confirms that they've cleared out all the monsters. Zeres is extremely upset and wonders what kind of brainless bastard would try to gather monsters. He's interrupted when he sees something that catches his attention. It's a set of semi-rare items just lying around in front of them. He shows it to Alden, and he seems curious about them as well. The two friends go to take a closer look and Alden wonders if items like that just drop in the dungeons. However, Zeres doesn't seem to think their source is important. He simply tells Alden to hurry up and grab them. As they pick up the items, they're both mesmerized by the treasure they just scored. Zeres wonders how much the items would be worth in total, and Alden admits that finding it was worth fighting off all the mobs. Unfortunately, before the two can seize the treasure, someone stops them. The person has scarred hands, and judging by his clenched fists, you can tell that a fight is about to go down. The big lady claims that she can't believe they're ready to take the items for themselves, and for some reason, she recognizes them as the famous Zeres and Alden from the notice board. Apparently, they've been very notorious on the server. Zeres tries to intimidate her for talking rudely to him, calling her and her party members some low-level shit stains. And that's when the girl reveals that she and the other players behind her are the actual owners of the items. Unfortunately for the scumbags, she's come especially prepared to face these fools, and even selected her main character, the level 100 Wang Chiaosu. So, what's the whole grudge about and why did this lady have to bring her strongest avatar to face them? Well, as you know, Zeres and Alden are scumbags and they're also notorious on the server's bulletin board for harassing female players. These losers even threaten female players to meet them in real life, and no one ever knows what happens after they meet in real life. However, because of the way the female users quit the game after the meetings, it doesn't seem good. The reason the problem never got out of hand is that the people they harassed just logged out of the game and disappeared afterward. As such, there was never anyone to complain about them. Because of this, our hero made up his mind and decided that he would be the one to kick the two scumbags out of the game for good. Back in the game, we see a flashback of Zig's master plan. He first of all stole the items from the real owner. Because he knew the traits of the Deborah dungeon too well, it was very easy for him. He disguised himself, took the items and kept them lying around for Zeres and Alden to find them. Before then, he grouped the mobs so that they would attack. In the end, the scumbags defeated the mobs, found the items, and then got framed for what the blacksmith did earlier. It was Zig who made Wang Xiaosu to come back more prepared because she wanted to deal with the person that stole her items. Unfortunately for Zeris and Alden, they're now taking the fall for it. Zig's master plan is what he calls dungeon backstabbing, and apparently it was a pretty popular thing in the past that the players hated a lot. As such, Wang and her party members are not planning to go easy on the two guys who supposedly brought back the forbidden trick. Wang and the others surround the scumbags, and even though they try to prove their innocence, there's no evidence to support it. Just like Zig predicted, by the time Wang and her party members are done beating up the scumbags, they're both forced to quit the game. After the whole saga, Sia checks the party board and is surprised to see that the scumbags have logged out of the game. She wonders if they died, but our hero informs her that they didn't. He claims that he received a message from them, saying that they had urgent business to attend to. Sia wonders why they didn't message her as well, and Zig just states that he doesn't know, suggesting that she can ask them whenever they come online again. What a smartass. The bloody blacksmith says this, but he knows that they won't ever log into the game with the same characters ever again. Seeing that the only members above level 45 are no longer around, Sia suggests that they head back. With Sia being at level 42 and Zig being at only level 38, he agrees with her, stating that the quest would be too difficult for them to handle. On the way back, Zig thinks about how he's successfully forced the scumbags out of the game, and decides that it's time he went back to blacksmithing. Stupid Sia then suddenly says it's a shame she didn't get to clear the dungeon. It turns out that for some reason, she won't be able to play the game anymore. Zig hears this and is immediately touched, so he tells her to wait, and suggests that they go back into the dungeon. Even though he doesn't feel like finishing the quest, he wants to help the dumb girl, so he tells her that since they're already there, they should just go into the dungeon to defeat the boss. Our hero had suggested taking down the dungeon boss with the archer girl. Hearing him suggest such a thing makes Sia very confused, and she's practically speechless when he says that they should go in to defeat the boss on their own. After noticing this disbelief and confusion on her face, Zig admits that he knows how difficult things are for her. All of a sudden, he starts trailing off when he recalls a memory from when he was younger and remembers a time when his mom smashed his video game because he couldn't play it without crying. After that, she practically banned him from using the computer for quite some time. Thinking that the girl might be in a similar situation because she hinted at not being able to play again, Zig starts to get emotional. He feels that he needs to give Sia an unforgettable memory, so he hopes that she will agree to fight the boss with him. Seeing the bloody blacksmith acting all weird is a little overwhelming for the girl, but she finally surmises that he just badly wants them to hunt the boss together. She asks him if this is what he means, and the blacksmith confirms it while wiping the tears off his face. In the very next moment, he's surprised when he looks and sees that Sia is already heading for the dungeon. She calls out to him, telling him to hurry up, but my boy is just confused how she got there so quickly. That's when he realizes that the doors have already started closing. He desperately runs as fast as he can to get to the door, before he gets locked out of the dungeon. Thankfully, he makes it just in the nick of time. His short ponytail almost even got caught by the doors closing behind him, and he heaves a heavy sigh of relief since he wasn't locked out. That's when Sia suddenly asks him a very important question. Are the two of them enough to hunt and defeat the boss? In response, Zig explains that it would be pretty plausible if the boss is on the level of the stone golem. He takes the opportunity to brag a little, claiming that whatever happens, they'll have no problem since he's around. Zig reveals that he knows the Deborah dungeon like the back of his hand, and assures her that they'll be fine. During his days as Bartz, Zig actually cleared the dungeon over 100 times all by himself. It actually got to a point that his muscle memory wouldn't allow him to make any mistakes, even if he tried doing it intentionally. As such, he's confident that he can help the girl out. On top of that, Zig concludes that it wouldn't be such a bad idea since he can also level up in the process. Along the way, Sia starts to get uncomfortable. She points out that it's been a while since they entered the dungeon, and yet they still haven't seen anything at all. Zig confidently assures her that the boss will probably appear soon if they just wait a little longer, especially since he knows that the stone golem stays in its boulder form most of the time. He sits on the floor while saying this, but a loud squeak suddenly gets their attention. It turns out that our boy accidentally sat down on a hamster. As the hamster continues squeaking, they both realize what just happened. The blacksmith picks up the hamster, and Sia is immediately mesmerized by its cuteness. Our hero is already aware of this hamster. It's a creature that always sticks around the stone golem. He starts pinching the tiny bugger's cheek and realizes that the stone golem must also be nearby. And so, he orders the little creature to go on and call out to his big brother. However, that's when something unexpected happens. The ground suddenly starts shaking, and Zig concludes that it's happening because the golem is already on its way. All the rocks in the cave start to move, and he tells the archer to dodge to the sides. Zig is pretty pissed that out of all the places the golem could spawn, it just happened to be right under where they were standing. And just then, all the rocks suddenly start coming together in the sky to form the body of the golem. As its massive feet hit the ground, the wind blows with such force that it knocks up a lot of heavy debris on the floor. Zig and Sia look up at the massive creature, and a tab pops up, revealing that this is the level 60 giant stone golem. It's a giant automaton made by the Deborah dungeon, and we also find out that it's the sentinel that guards the dungeon. Not surprisingly, Sia is very overwhelmed by the golem. And with a horrified look on her face, she asks the blacksmith if they can actually hunt such a big monster on their own. Of course, with a confident grin etched on his face, the blacksmith simply assures her that they can do it, but only if they can follow his strategy. Suddenly, my dude starts charging at the giant golem with his sword, before the girl can even understand what's going on. When she finally sees his plan, she tells him that she'll cover for him by pulling out her bow and shooting the golem in the arm. The massive beast is pretty unfazed by the hit, even though it loses 40 life points as a result. Enraged, the giant golem roars and charges at our girl. Before she can manage to shoot another arrow, it easily knocks her away and sends her flying. Zig immediately retaliates when he sees this. He taunts the monster and gets its attention by calling it a rock-headed dummy. I didn't think golems had feelings, but the massive rock turns to Zig regardless. The blacksmith challenges it, claiming that he's its opponent. He yells for the stone golem to fight him as he slashes its leg with his sword, and the strike takes away 15 points from the monster. Our hero notices that the impact gave him an injury on his hand, and he's baffled because he was the one who attacked. He wonders why he would get hurt and almost starts crying, but he's interrupted when the furious golem turns to him again. It tries to smash him into the ground, but he dodges the attack by leaping into the air like a cat. Although he managed to avoid getting hit, Zig is certain that his ability to jump is very slow. He's disappointed that his stats are so much lower than he expected, because he's very used to Bartz's agility and speed. Regardless, he knows that now is not the time to give up. From experience, he knows that he needs to first get on top of the golem's head to defeat it. But before he can execute any of his plans, the stone golem's massive hand is heading forward to smash him. It's coming so fast that he doesn't really know what exactly he should do. But just in the nick of time, he notices the arrow still stuck in the golem's arm and comes up with an idea. The smirk on his face suggests that he finally has a solid plan in mind. Zig pushes his body to the max and continues to dodge all of the golem's attacks. Sia chases after the monster and calls out to Zig to help, but he just tells her not to come his way. He then continues to evade all the monster's hits and orders Sia to shoot at the golem's joints from afar. The girl understands the assignment and immediately sets loose another arrow. It hits the golem and removes another 40 points from its total health. After that, she shoots another arrow that removes 30 points, and this time, the blast even knocks the tiny hamster off the golem's body. At this point, Sia has gone into beast mode, because she instantly follows up with another shot that takes away 16 points from the monster. By the time she is done shooting, we see that she's left an arrow in almost all of the stone golem's joints. Meanwhile, the bloody blacksmith gulps down another potion on the sidelines. When he's done, he wipes his mouth and reveals that he's found the way to defeat the golem. All of a sudden, there's a massive explosion inside the dungeon, and the force is so great that it sends the potion bottle flying towards the golem. It bounces off the stone monster's body, and Zig uses the momentum from the blast to fly over the massive creature. While he's in the air, he turns upside down and goes in for a powerful dive with his sword pointed at the creature's head. Our hero knows that a golem's weak point is its core, and just as he expected, the Viscous Dream Max company made sure that the giant golem's core would be located in its crown. With this in mind, Zig buries his sword on the top of the golem's head, not allowing it a single chance to react. My guy uses all the momentum he managed to muster and generates enough force to crack right into the monster's head. The cracks in the golem's head begin to glow with a bright red color, and the blacksmith smiles in satisfaction, knowing that he successfully hit it on its weak point. Feeling accomplished, he suggests that it's time to head to the reward room. Unfortunately, something unexpected happens first. The giant golem suddenly tosses our hero off its head and immediately starts to roar as the red color from its head glows even brighter. Zig falls off, shocked at what happened, and even loses his sword in the process. Thankfully, before he can fall to his demise, Sia catches him like Superman would usually catch Lois Lane. With a worried look in her eyes, she holds him in her arms and asks him if he's gay. Okay. Zig is still so shaken by what just happened that he doesn't even realize that he's being carried like a baby. Guess it's not that important right now, since he would have died if she hadn't caught him from falling. My guy looks into the girl's eyes and admits that he's okay thanks to her help. Eventually, he gets down from her arms to catch his breath. Sia tells him to hide for a bit and recover while she faces the monster herself to buy them some time. Of course, our hero is surprised to hear her say this and points out that they're almost done hunting. But before he can finish his sentence, he's interrupted by the roar of the giant stone golem. It appears to be angrier than before, and judging by the terrifying red glow emanating from its body, the both of them realize that there's a serious problem. They wonder what could be happening to the stone monster, when suddenly, another tab pops up to reveal that the boss monster has entered its berserk state. They've somehow managed to push the boss to a state where its core is damaged, and can no longer be used to control it. But to make matters worse, the golem's speed and attack power has now increased by a significant margin. At this point, the berserk stone golem is so enraged that it has molten magma flowing out of its head. It tries to smash our hero once again, but I guess my guy isn't gay because he keeps dodging. Still, for someone who has cleared the dungeon over 100 times, he sure looks lost as fuck. His formerly calm and confident demeanor has totally disappeared, because it appears that he's never encountered the golem in this state. After evading most of the hits, he's now exhausted and confused. He doesn't even believe what's happening at the moment. He's just afraid that he will lose for the first time because he was trying to show off and didn't take the dungeon seriously. Zig tries to charge at the berserk golem again, but quickly gets swatted away like a fly. He's now reaping the bitter fruit for being overconfident, because he felt that since he cleared the dungeon 100 times before, it would just be another walk in the park. As the golem smashes the ground, the force blows him away along with the girl, but he still manages to get back up and attack it again. Unfortunately, it ends with the same result once again. Since this is the first time he's facing such a weird attack pattern from the monster, our hero is having a really rough time. As the berserk golem throws him back once again, Zig remembers how that wouldn't have been an issue back when he was Bart's. Back then, it didn't matter if he was facing an opponent for the first time or seeing an unfamiliar attack pattern, he would always manage to overcome any obstacles. But now, he's no longer the same character, and as he falls to the ground, the reality of his predicament dawns on him. To add salt to his wounds, his sword gets broken by the golem. It's hard for Zig to accept that he's no longer as skilled as he used to be, especially in such a crucial battle. He falls to his knees and looks at his broken sword as the berserk golem stands behind him, preparing to finish him off. But then suddenly, there's a huge blast in the radius. Someone unleashes a mighty power shot on the golem's head, and a massive explosion follows. Zig's eyes pop out in shock as he hears the loud blast coming from behind him. He's snapped out of his daze when Sia pulls his hand and drags him away from the golem. He follows her, of course, but remains stunned by what just happened. The girl tells him to follow her and suggests that they find somewhere to hide and recover their health. Their collective HP is so low that their lives are at risk, so of course, hiding would be their best course of option. Sia urges the blacksmith to run faster, and they manage to hide behind a huge boulder before the golem can find out which way they went. The berserk golem scans the area with its terrifying red eyes and patrols the dungeon in search of the duo. While the golem frantically searches for them, Zig catches his breath, and Sia reveals that she checked for exits and didn't find any. Just as they expected, if they want to get out of the dungeon alive, they'll have to defeat the boss. Sia reveals that she tried attacking the golem's core as well, but found out her attempts were pointless. The girl is still talking, when the bloody blacksmith just literally zones out, almost like he's falling asleep. Sia calls for his attention, but he just tells her that they can't break the golem. Mr. Confidence has suddenly given up, and Sia is shocked to hear him talk like a depressed monkey who just had its banana stolen by a baboon. Zig reveals that this is the first time he is facing this type of golem, and claims that it might be a hidden pattern that only occurs under special conditions. He claims that they need to either suppress the golem with a damage dealer or determine an attack strategy that will actually work. Unfortunately, neither of the options seems to be available to them because their levels are too low. As a result, Zig suggests that the best option would be to die in a way that inflicts the least amount of pain. Naturally, our archer girl is both shocked and a bit disappointed to hear him say this.